Greetings, everyone. This is Nyoka Samuels Gilchrist, your intuitive health and wellness coach. And I have the absolute pleasure tonight to talk with Dr. Amanda Lewis-Yarbrough, who is a clinical psychologist here in Montgomery, Alabama, one of the very few Black women clinical psychologists. So we must big her up.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Amanda, please tell us some more about who you are, what you do, and how you do what you do.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I surely appreciate being here. So, of course, as you said, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist here in Alabama, specifically in Montgomery. And something I saw within my family, especially, there's a lot of veterans. So, I saw individuals going into the service and then they would come back home, but they were different. And I never could figure it out. So, I kind of was doing maybe some form of counseling or therapy for quite some time because I saw people hurting. I just didn't know what that was. And once I found out about mental illness, PTSD, the VA, I was like, hey, I want to be that person on the other side of this when these folks come back so they can have a voice. So that's what got me started in the field of psychology. I wanted to be that person within that system that could hear individuals like my family members. I wanted them to see someone that looked like them. I wanted them to be able to speak in a language that they were comfortable with so that they could be heard. And I eventually accomplished that mission. I got my doctorate degree. I began working at the VA and still do. I contract with them. So
Oh,
that was just something that was really near and dear to my heart because, like I said, about 90% of my family members are all veterans. And I just wanted to make sure that when these individuals put that time and that sacrifice into the service, that they could come back and then process that.
yes. Oh, I love your story. I didn't know that backstory. So, this is also good for me to hear. Here in Montgomery, Alabama, we have a really large Air Force base, Maxwell Air Force Base.
Mhm.
But what you also find in the South is that many people who look like us join the
Mhm.
service as a way to make life, right? And
Right.
so, thank you so much for telling us about your story. Another question that I would love to ask. Well, first, let me tell everyone how we met, right?
Yes.
So I decided to go outside, and you were hosting a blueprint. You called it the Blueprint Within
Yeah.
workshop,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, this looks interesting." And you were a
Mhm.
Black woman, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this looks like something that could be um, like my debut, Get Outside." So I went and I had a fabulous time. Can you tell us about your journal, The Blueprint Within?
Yeah, so of course, in the therapy room, so many of my clients, they have various resources I will not name that they find that can be helpful in some instances, but sometimes what I found it was not. And what I would do myself, I would either purchase those or ask to review some of those resources. And what I found was while helpful, it wasn't getting at the core. So, what I did over the last year, year and a half was I began to take a lot of the common themes that I saw from individuals as they were coming up, regardless of whatever the language was, whatever the words they were using. It was all looking at family, it was looking at career, we were looking at self esteem, we were looking at kind of that growth, some aspects of trauma. So, I combined those all into our blueprint. And something that I think is so funny about that is I always talk about our foundation, our foundation. And when I was working with the team on that, we came up with that blueprint of how do we build our lives because I didn't want something that was just like, okay, I'm done with this. Now what? I wanted something that was going to lay a strong, solid foundation for now and for years to come for individuals. So with the prompts, with how everything was structured, it was my goal to get people to get a little uncomfortable, to think about things that they might not have thought about or things that they might kind of push away and avoid in order to face that and get stronger and again to build the foundation they needed to ultimately build the lives they wanted. So that's kind of the core of that with the blueprints within. This was kind of my my baby, my test piece to put out there. And I've gotten some good feedback about it. I've gotten some good feedback, about things that, I can add into future iterations of this as well. But it was just really exciting to hand something that was based in like my knowledge base from my experience from an evidence based perspective that I think is palpable for anybody, regardless if they're in therapy, they're contemplating, if they're a teenager, if they're older, regardless of where they are on their journey.
Yes, yes. One of the things I loved about that time that we spent together was your your openness to talk
Mhm,
about spirituality in a way that was
mhm.
very um, like it didn't mark any territories. You didn't mark any territory, and I love that. Can you tell me or tell us more about that in your practice?
Yes, I work really hard to meet individuals where they are. My belief system might not be someone else's belief system, but that does not mean that we can't mesh or we don't have a commonality. We all have our beliefs, and I think that when we can embrace the uniqueness, embrace the individual aspects of each other, that builds something so powerful. And honestly, that's something that I can say is a strength and maybe a weakness of mine is that I am very open. I will talk, I will tell you about me, but in doing so, what I'm showing individuals is we can let go of the fear of being judged. And I always say this is a judgment free zone. So if I want that openness from individuals, I give that as well, of course, within reason and within a therapeutic aspect of it, but just to show ultimately at our core, we're all human. And yes, we can have whatever our belief system is, and that's okay. How can we find again some common piece of that and kind of, I don't know, give each other grace? How can we find ways to cherish each other in those moments and the vulnerability that comes with it? And that's kind of my approach to that. Once people see, which is something you can't teach. Once people see that genuine aspect, the curiosity in their lifestyles and all, again, I think that's something that's just helpful for them and they can model outside of the therapy room as well.
Yes, I love your here I go back to saying I love that, I love that, but
At least you're not saying I feel, because we got to feel a lot.
that's one of the things that consistently just pulls me to you is that I feel like you are Switzerland. I feel like you are neutral ground. And that's what makes your practice so welcoming to the communities here in Montgomery. So I thank you for that openness. I felt that, when I first walked into your space. And so we continue to grow and evolve together. You
Yeah.
invited me to come to your Mother's Day brunch that you
Mhm.
hosted. And during that brunch, you did
Mhm.
something that impressed me so much. After the presentation and the audience, yeah, we didn't talk about this yet, but I'm going to tell you. The audience came with their questions, and one of the questions had to do with the word sacrifice. And you
Mhm.
said, let's look up that word sacrifice. And you read the definition out loud and you encouraged um, a pivot, a pivot to another word that better described what we did. We didn't
Mhm.
necessarily sacrifice, but
Mhm.
what we did was show our support. And ever
Mhm.
since then, every time someone says the word sacrifice, I'm like, "Mm, you might not want to use that word because it's
Mhm.
a very like biblical in the biblical sense of
Yes.
word, and that's what the definition pulled up, right?
Right.
We're not doing that when we decide that we want to support our children in their
Mhm.
sports events. We're
Yeah.
not doing that when we decide that we're going to show up at their schools and when we're going to help them with homework. We're not sacrificing. What we're
Right.
doing is supporting. So I want to
Absolutely.
tell you that I was very impressed with how you managed that and how you pivoted into let's change our way of thinking. So, can you tell us some more about how you encourage the people that you serve to open up their perspectives and take on new meanings to life, please?
Yes. It's a From the CBT, that's the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, and that's something I've had to kind of take and make into my own, as we all do. But it's called cognitive challenging. I just try to do that in a way, again, where I'm meeting individuals where they are. So I could outright challenge and be like, "No, that's wrong," or I could say, "Okay, that's a good thought. Let's look that up." And now it's we're moving it away from me, and I'm like, let's put this on Merriam-Webster, or let's really look at what we're saying. And then after that, it's like, one of my supervisors taught us, we drop the rope in that person's lap, and it's like, look, I've given you this information. What are you going to do with it? If this is what we're going to continue to use, fine. But now at least you know. And I know too, because I'm often shocked when I look up words too. I'll be in the middle of session, they be like, oh,
Yeah.
you looking it up? I'm like, yes, I am. Let's look up this word.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
this what you're meaning? So
Yes.
again, I think it gives us that emotional intelligence that a lot of us have not been taught. And I see that almost like it's like unlocking this locked door for individuals when they really see what they are saying. They see how heavy those words are. They see the weight that they've been carrying by saying, I'm sacrificing, or I'm this, or I'm that. And when they're confronted with black and white, this is what this accepted definition is by this accepted book of a dictionary, how can we challenge that? So it's almost like the data aspect. So again, to me, it's a general challenging of, hey, that's might not be the most helpful word. What can we find that is more helpful for you? What can we find that matches what you're truly trying to say?
Yes, love that. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Amanda. Another point, a lot of people see mental health as a very broad topic. I think a lot of us don't realize how dynamic the field is in
Mhm,
terms of clinicians. So,
mhm,
there are counselors, there's a clinical psychologist, there are certified mental health coaches, there
mhm,
are psychiatrists, and please tell us some more specifically about how you work within mental health.
So the fun thing about it, which is, I actually was talking to an individual today that was interested in going into a PhD psychology program, and we were talking about the differences in that. But the interesting thing with psychology is that we can do the therapy aspect, which a lot of psychologists do, but we can also do the psychological evaluation. So it's like, when people are going in saying, oh, they were showing me those ink blots and asking me, what I think and all, but we really get a chance to do that in depth work. And while that can be super clinical, super data driven, what I love about it is I use psychological evaluation, so we call psych evals, to teach individuals what that data means and to teach them then in turn what they meet criteria for. Because somebody like, oh, well, they gave me. No, we're not giving anything. We're telling you this is what this says. And just like if you were to go get blood work and it says your glucose levels were 300, that means, hey, my sugar's high. Here in the South, we say high sugar. So if this is high or low on this end, then this is what it's saying about you cognitively and maybe even health wise. So I get to teach individuals a lot more about themselves than what's at the surface.
Mhm.
And I just really love that because it's more than just an IQ test. It's more than just looking at depression or achievement or personality characteristics. It's so, so, so much deeper. And I look at that also in a spiritual aspect as well of, I'm helping this person tap into their inner selves. A lot of it comes out that they wouldn't even tell me or their therapist in a session. It's like we lay it out right here and we can't hide it. So we have to address it. We have to tap into that area that they thought they could hide or they thought they did not have to address so soon. So that's something I find that I really enjoy is doing the psychological evaluations. And that's something, especially with certain tests that only licensed psychologists can do and can interpret.
Oh, that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
there's a spectrum of all the, they gave me's, right? Depression, there's a
Mhm.
spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Anxiety disorder, there's a spectrum.
Mhm.
So you can literally see if this person may need medication versus the cognitive behavioral therapy, literally based on the evaluation those levels can help to guide your treatment. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's what we do. I go through maybe about 10 to 12 pages. And then at the end, it's like maybe a paragraph and it's bulleted. And that's my recommendations. And usually the first thing is, hey, check in with your primary caregiver because a lot of individuals, anxiety or depression manifests as somatic symptoms. So a lot of people, oh, my head hurts. Oh, the light's a little bright. Oh, my stomach has been bothering me, when their anxiety could be high. Or it could be the appetite, sleep, a lot of those different aspects. So absolutely, I always encourage them. And like I tell them, this is a recommendation, but it's completely up to you. Again, I drop the rope in their lap of I'm empowering you to make the decision, because I tell everybody, you're the expert on you. I'm the expert on all things psychology within my realm, but you're the expert on you. All I can do is, kind of be your consultant and tell you, hey, look, these are the things that I think would be beneficial for you. And you pick and choose which ones that they are. And people ask questions because medications can be scary, therapy can be scary, and all. And we talk to and address it, letting them know again, you're fully in the driver's seat. You have 1,000% control over this. You get to select what you want for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering that question.
Yes, ma'am.
Another, I know that we don't have all day, but
You did.
I have to ask you this. When it comes to authenticity inside your field and also how you show up for your own health and wellness,
Mhm.
right? How do you keep things balanced?
Yeah, so I tell everybody, number one, I have an amazing therapist. Her name is Miss Lewis. I see her about once a month. I call those my tune-up sessions. So I go in, and sometimes it's just like a little check-in, like at the doctor, like, okay, let's check your temperature, this and you good. Going about my way. Like I said at the journal event, sometimes I'm like, man, what do you want to eat? Because we're gonna be in here a while. But I think that's so important, because we tend to, especially in our community, we'll go get our eyes checked, we'll go to the dentist, we'll go do all these other things, but we are terrified of the mental health aspect of it.
Mhm.
And that's something I work so hard to tell everybody. I'm very open about it. Like, I have my own therapist. I go and check in. I go to the gym to work out, to just do those things that help to take care of me. Like today was it was a Monday. And when I got home, I put on my headphones, I put on what is this, a podcast, and I just kind of sat on the sofa and just sat there. And I saw my husband walk by, I saw the kids kind of walk by, and they just kind of knew, okay, she's having her kind of decompression moment. So I think we have to, you know, do those things that we need. And we think self-care is a big grand thing, like, oh, I have to go plan a trip to here. I'm like, no, you can sit in your car and eat a cupcake, and that's your self-care. Like, drink a bottle of water for the day. You define what self-care is. You again are the expert on you, and you know what you need. Take that nap. Like, go and do these things for yourself. And that's what I found, is just giving myself permission to take care of me and learning what that looks like. That's been fun and challenging at sometimes, but now it's something I protect dearly.
Yes, I do notice that about you. You protect, when I tell you boundaries, if I had anyone who I would crown the queen of boundaries, it would be you.
Lord.
And I love it. I respect it and I love it. Now, I know that you had the opportunity to see me work inside of the brunch.
Mhm. Yes.
How do you see us working closer together?
I just absolutely love your spirit, your energy. It's just, you meet those folks in life that you just genuinely like mesh with. And it's just like, I'm like, I want you at more things. Everybody absolutely loved you during this talk. And I know you kind of like, well, how did it was it received? I think it was some things that people had to internalize and kind of chew on and digest in that moment. But everyone's like, oh my gosh, like she's amazing. Like, I want to talk to her. Like the young ladies, even that we had there, they were just so, I see that aspect because you bring such a unique perspective, especially from the holistic aspect. And that's something that so many individuals ask me for with that practitioner. I'm really excited to have you at the event coming up in July, because that is just going to be awesome again to introduce individuals in our community to all resources, because we know one way, but we all don't know other ways, or we don't think it's something that's accepted or acceptable. So that's where I see us is blending our knowledge base, blending our skill set, and honestly, our people skills, and to be able to get individuals to look at themselves from our different lenses, me from a psychological perspective, you from a holistic health perspective. And I think that's just going to be a beautiful, beautiful melding of ideas.
Yes. So I'm ready to start blasting the
I was gonna
flyer
say that because I'm like,
everywhere.
look, you say that now that's the while your boundaries are gonna be strong because you're gonna be like, do not call me, don't text me. But I'm like, look, you told me I had to go ahead, so my foot is on the gas. So
I look
I'm pacing it
forward.
out before we just pounce.
We're ready to go. I'm ready to support
Mhm.
your practice in all the different ways that I can. I think our communities are ready for it. When
Yes.
I was at the brunch and I saw some of the women just kind of go into it, I said,
Mhm.
"Wow, they are
Yes.
really, really ready."
Yes.
So I think they also gave us the go ahead to
Yes.
do the things that we need to do to support our community because we need each other. The wellness
Absolutely.
happens, it's we, not
Yes.
individually. Yes, there's work to do there, but then you really sign, seal, and deliver it when we get together. So I'm about to blast the
Mhm.
flyer everywhere.
And that's as you were saying that
And
because I find myself now after meeting you, I go away more so now from mental health because it's all that's been drilled into my head throughout this mental health. And now I'm looking at it from a mental wellness standpoint. So that's something again that you've taught me in this. So I made sure to use that as well as like not just mental health, but mental wellness, and I think that's a better way of looking at it. And like as you're saying with words, if I were to look up health versus wellness, what would I find? So it's
yes.
something again, you helped me to transition my frame of thought or how I've been talking about it. So
Well, I thank you. I think that we have a beautiful future ahead of us.
yeah,
Our partnership is going to grow, and we're just going to see all the blooms from
yeah,
our work together. All the blossoms are going to start coming up, and I'm so excited for it. So I
yeah.
know that we have to wrap up. We have to go. I could sit and talk to you forever,
Likewise.
but thank you so much for being our guest on Authen-Tea-Cally
Well,
Nyoka.
thank you.
Dr. Lewis, we have so much more to do together. Thank you so
Mhm.
very much. It is my pleasure. And thank you everyone for watching.
Yes, have a good evening.